We got a brand new used 2004 Camry, and you know why the guy had to buy it? Because he had a nice hybrid Camry, his daughter was driving it, and somebody T-boned him. So he had to get another car, and luckily he found this 20-year-old Camry that only had like 130,000 miles on it, and he got it for $4,300, which is a great deal when you consider, hey, a new one's $31,000. This still got at least 50-60% of its life left. Just an LE, so those aren't alloy. Those are plastic hubcaps, but from far away they look perfectly fine. And yeah, people put seat covers on because this has old fabric. It's a little bit worn, but the back seats are still in really good shape, and they got huge trunks. Now, he's owned it for 7 months. He's done nothing except change the oil, and it even came with a cute little trailer. It's got a little hitch that he can pull garbage and stuff with. These engines have enough horsepower to pull little trailers. Now, under the hood, he's lucky. And he's lucky that it's a 2004 because it is the infamous 2.4-liter engine that often burns oil, but as I said, this is an 04. This one didn't have bad piston rings. It doesn't burn oil. It runs fine. Now, my grandson's is an 07 Camry, same engine, but bad piston rings. It burns a lot of oil. It still runs, but this one doesn't. So keep that in mind. If you're looking at one of these, if it's a 2007, 8, 9, you want to pull out a spark plug. If it's got carbon on it, it's burning oil, and you might say, unless you're getting it dirt cheap, why buy a car that burns oil? Even though it'll probably run. It'll burn oil, and if you live in an area that does emissions testing, eventually that ruins the catalytic converter. You have to change it and all that stuff. Now, he lives in Massachusetts. If they're over 15 years old, you don't have to do emissions testing, so you wouldn't have to worry. But see, that's another reason. If you can find a 20-year-old car, 130,000 miles is relatively low mileage. You can find a car like that, hey, you don't have to ever worry about the emissions testing in Massachusetts. But it's a good thing he doesn't live here in Rhode Island, because that's 25 years before you don't have to do an emissions test. So, I mean, I know a lot of people, they'll register their stuff in New Hampshire where they let anybody register and they don't have any hassle with that. There's always ways around things that people can figure out, but one of the big advantages of buying a Toyota that's a really reliable car, if you live in an area like Massachusetts, after 15 years, you don't have to get the emissions testing done. Some stupid light comes on and they tell you it's going to be $1,000 to fix it. If it runs okay, you can just ignore it. Now, even back in these days in 04, Toyota knew how to undercoat these things. There's no rust going through. The paint's still in really good shape. The undercarriage is still solid. You can see it's got a really nice draw-tight hitch on it too, and that came with the whole deal. A lot of older technology is better than the new technology when it comes to longevity, right? Let's say this was an electric car. I would never buy a 20-year-old electric car. The battery's going to cost a fortune. These old things weren't made that way, and they still get decent gas mileage. I mean, he gets like 29, 30 miles a gallon on a highway. Who could complain? Now, his wife, I guess, complains it's not fast enough. It's all relative to people, right? The other day, a guy brought me a brand new Acura TLX, 350 horsepower, right? Screaming. He said, I wish it was a little faster. I said, this guy's out of his mind. This thing is faster than anything needs to be, right? These things cruise all day long at 85 miles an hour. Do you need more than that? No, you don't. Especially if you're buying used. As you can see, it's real dirty because it's from Massachusetts. That's just superficial rust. But hey, still the original alternator, still the original starter. Now, it's not the original battery, that's a Duralast AutoZone one, but most of the stuff's still original equipment, even though it's 20 years old, because they make them better. Right, here we have Camry North America 04, made in Kentucky. So, we'll do a total analysis of it, see what shape it's in. It does a basic topology scan, doesn't do the one with 20 different things, right, but we'll see what's happening. Doing its thing, we'll look around. The dash is still good, and it's got all these little animals floating around here. That's not stock, but he's still got the stock radio. Check it out. CD and tape deck. You can play music on them. It probably still works too. 20-year-old car, what has it got? One problem with the stupid airbag system. That's it. We'll check it out, see what the stupid code is. I wouldn't trust a 20-year-old airbag. Occupant classification system fault. It's much the way that part's broken. You never expect anything to work anyways. You got a car that's 20 years old. Put on that seatbelt. That's the safest thing you can do. Well, there's really nothing wrong. We'll start her up. We'll look at the data. Go to the ECM. It's an old car, so it takes a little while for it to pop up. It's not instant like the new ones that are like 100 times faster. Black's good, red's bad. Let's start looking at stuff here. Long-term fuel trim. Okay. It's adding 1.53% long-term. which isn't much. 35,081 miles on it. Everything so far looks pretty stable. Look at the air fuel trim. One is perfect. Oh my God, it's one or once in a while, wait a second, 0.99, that's off 1/100th of a percent. Like I say, they don't make these things like they used to. These things can just run and run and run. They don't have high pressure GDI pumps on them. They don't have turbochargers on them. They've just got solid, reliable stuff that can run forever. Now this baby was made in Kentucky and they didn't have any problems. We had a Camry station wagon that was made in Kentucky. Both of my kids learned how to drive on it. They smacked them up and they still kept running. Temperature of the automatic transmission fluid. You get a lot of information even on these old ones. At least if you have a machine like this. And as expected, the cylinder misfire counts are all 0. 20 years old, does it shake? No, it doesn't shake. And I just found out that this originally was an old man's car from Cape Cod, and then the son took it over, had it parked in his driveway, and this guy found it and bought it. That's the kind of car you want to buy. On the bumpy roads, and really? Ride's pretty good. Now, the front struts are a little worn. It's a little bouncy, but I mean, it's nothing outrageous. It's not like the steering wheel's shaking like mad. I personally would just leave it alone because it's still going pretty good. So here we go, up to the little turn. We'll take off with it. All right, that side's open. Here we go. Give it a little gas. Shift smooth. It's fast enough for me. I don't know. I guess if you're driving a V8 turbocharger, you think this is slow, but hey, doesn't seem slow to me. Still corners like a dream. If you can find an old man's car who then his son took it and didn't drive it much and sells it, these are the cars that smart people look for. Now, he didn't even want to get a car, but when his daughter got T-boned, he didn't have any choice. So, now of course, it's a 20-year-old Toyota, so the AC blows cold, the heat blows hot, the windows all roll down, everything still works on it. So what do I think? Well, I think if you can find a car like this for $4,000, buy it. There are many old people that don't drive much, and the advantage of this, 5 years ago, they didn't have to do emissions testing in Massachusetts. Even though it's an '04, Toyota knew how to coat them so it's not rusted. Funny, before he bought this, he was looking at a Ford Edge, and it was newer. Took it to his mechanic. The guy put it in a lift. He said, "Get away from this thing. The body's ready to fall off. It's all rotting away." And it was 10 years newer than this thing was. Ford doesn't know how to make rust-proof cars. Hey, these things, they knew what they were doing. Still looks great. Still runs great. Hey, he didn't want to buy a car, but when his daughter got T-boned, this is a really good replacement. There's no arguing that. Now, people have loved 4Runners for ages, 2024, and it may be the last one that a lot of people are going to love. For one main reason, this is the last V6 engine that they're going to put in these things. Just like my son's Tacoma, TRD Off-Road, that was the last Tacoma that had a 4-cylinder engine. Then the next year, they're getting rid of them in the 4Runners. They're only going to have turbo 4s here in the United States. I predicted they would have problems with the Tacomas when they went to 6-4, and indeed they have. Had transmission problems, they've had problems, and I predict they'll have the same problems, only doubly so, in a 4Runner, because numero uno, the 4Runner weighs more than a Tacoma does. Not a smart thing. And of course, people who are nuts about 4Runners, try to find a good used one. They all cost a fortune. That's why people buy new ones. You're almost paying the same price. You might as well go out and buy a new one. But 2025, you can't get these V6s anymore. You're gonna get a turbo 4. That's not what people want. Toyota, you're making a big mistake. People want something that can pull weight, go off-road with the torque of a V6 engine. I know the turbos theoretically can have more horsepower and more torque, but it's at higher RPMs. You're pulling a boat in and out of the water, you're at low RPMs. You're going off-road, you're at low RPMs, low speeds, right? A turbo 4 was not made for that, but that's all they're putting in. So the reason they bought this in this strange orange color is because it's the last one they're making that's any good. She's had other ones, older ones, never had any problems with them because they are well made. I had one over here last year at 375,000 miles on it. still ran like a top because it's got a V6 engine. It's strong. It doesn't have all this turbocharged crap in it. It's a normally aspirated 6-cylinder engine that's got plenty enough horsepower and torque for driving around in. But the main thing is, they can last forever. 50 grand, but I mean the average car today is about 46.5, so this is not an average vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. Strong timing chain. Hey, it's a Toyota. Now, as you can see, compared to other cars, there's all kinds of working room. It's not like it's crammed in, but being a Toyota, you generally don't have to do any work on it except change the oil. But if you do when you got 300,000 miles, it's very easy to work on. It's not cramped. And of course, it's a full-frame vehicle. Check it out. And this one, of course, all these foreigners are made in Japan. This is still made in Japan. You got a full-frame vehicle that can last forever, that can take it. I had a customer in Houston with one. He bought it. He got T-boned. I'm not kidding. The vehicle was bent like this, but he still drove it down the road. It looked ridiculous. It looked like somebody had bent a hot dog, and he was driving down the road, but it's still tracked because the frame didn't get bent. Well, anything happens to them, you can fix them because I got a solid frame. They're high up in the air. They're not going to bottom out on stuff. And being a TRD off-road, okay. This is real off-road. Look at the transfer case. Look, it's mechanical. Is there anything mechanical left these days? Well, there is here. This isn't one of these. Well, sorry, it won't go in 4-wheel drive because your computer's not working. Electric motor servo's not working. But this is a gear shift now. It's not a bunch of electronic nonsense that's going to break. These things basically can last forever if you take care of it. And of course, it's got the locking diff, so you're going to have to be one of a heck of a lousy driver to get stuck with this thing. You get in mud, sleet, snow, whatever, you lock that diff, it's going to get out of whatever it's in, unless you've driven underwater and it's flooded. These have what people want, which just amazes me of why Toyota's getting rid of this engine and putting in a stupid 4-cylinder turbo. To me, that's just the epitome of stupidity. It's a big vehicle, basically a truck, even though we call it an SUV. It is a full frame. Very few SUVs these days are full frames. But that's what people are buying these things for. They're not buying these things to get 51 miles a gallon. You want to get 51 miles a gallon, get a Camry hybrid. You know? But that's not who's buying these things. Right? You're getting rid of your own audience by downsizing into a Turbo 4. Now, the other thing I really like about them is the transmission. Is this an 810 500 speed tranny? No, it is 5 speeds. They are so dependable. Now, you can put it and you can shift it by hand if you want, but most people just put it and drive away. He's got a big old sunroof. I'm not that big of a fan of sunroofs, but plenty of room for the kiddie seats, plenty of room in the back. You put the seats down, you can carry all kinds of stuff in it. Let's start her up. Beautiful graphics, and yes, the screen is built in. This isn't one of these Toyotas or Lexuses that has the one that looks like a ridiculous screen that was glued on like an afterthought. This fits the vehicle. And of course, you've got simple controls for the heat. You don't have to be a computer scientist. What do? No, you turn it for the fan. You turn it for the heat. Simplicity itself. Of course, it's got all the modern stuff for collision avoidance, heated seats, a window in the back that goes up and down, handy for throwing groceries in. Bunch of power supplies you can use, intelligent cruise control. I can feel that heated seat. There's a cold front coming in, but it feels nice. And while we're looking at it, beautiful seats. Now, it's not real leather, it's synthetic leather. It actually has a longer lifespan. They generally last quite a bit longer. They look pretty much like leather. They're synthetic leather, and they're made pretty well. You don't get the cracking that you'll get over the ages with regular leather seats, and they don't have the maintenance where you gotta keep waxing them and everything. Turn the traction control off if you want. You can do the crawl, like I said, so you can lock the differential so you don't get stuck. I mean, look at all the choices that you have. I mean, it's wild. So let's take it for a spin, see how it goes. The V6, okay, smooth idling, as you can see. You get all kinds of views. It is a phenomenal backup camera. You can see the fronts, the sides. It's warning you. Somebody went behind me and it warned. Hey, but you get a really nice panorama. See, it's warning there's somebody coming. Now they're gone. My wife might make me buy one of these just for that feature. She said I'm getting old. You're nice and high up in the air, not outrageously so. And that 5-speed transmission is smooth as silk. For a vehicle with relatively aggressive tires, it's pretty quiet. They've really come a long way in making aggressive treads that don't make that much noise going down the road. I gotta say, years ago, if you had aggressive tires, you'd hear them howling down the road, woo, woo, woo. Not the case. They figured out how to make them right now. The transmission is so smooth, and being only 5 speeds, boy, I predict a long life for these things. It's not one of these 10-speed, 9-speed, 8 speeds. The too many gears are always hunting for gears. This thing is very crisp shifting. I'm surprised they still haven't been built any houses there. Tells me the economy's in a bit of a slump. Normally that would have had 100 houses on it already. Well, we'll take you to our little drag strip. As you can see, there's nobody behind us, so we'll come to a stop. Again, nobody behind us, and we'll floor it. Smooth shifting, lots of power, and of course, we'll slow down a little to 40. Then we'll punch it and see how it'll pass. Here we go. Speedometer picks up nice and sprightly. No problem passing people in this beast. Smooth ride for a off-road vehicle, really. They got the suspension pretty well sorted out too. It's warning you, I got too close to one line. That works too. We'll speed up a little, even though we're supposed to slow down for the curve. No problem whatsoever. And now we'll head back to the other side of the airport. It's windy outside, but it's really not affecting the handling of this or the noise inside. It's pretty well insulated. We'll be making a turn, and no problem making a turn. Nice handling. Again, as we take off, I gotta say, you couldn't even feel that shifting from first to second gears. The advantage of having only 5 speeds. It's not continually shifting up and down and making itself a nuisance. Now, you just won't get the smooth driving experience in the 2025s with the turbo 4-cylinder. It's just not the same. But there is one gigantic problem with this vehicle. And that's good luck trying to find one. These people live in Tennessee. They had to go all the way to Ohio to find one to buy. So, it is the last of the great 4Runners as far as I'm concerned. Maybe the best ever made. But switching to a 4-cylinder turbo, Toyota, you're making a grave mistake. People that want these vehicles, they don't want a hybrid car that gets 50 miles a gallon. They want a big truck SUV that can get them wherever they want, smooth, they can pull stuff, tow boats, they can go wherever they want off-road, and not have to worry about getting stuck with the marvelous Toyota 4-wheel drive system that they got on them that hardly ever break. The only time I ever see them break was when people broke them, rolling them over, crawling rocks or something. Hurry up and get one because there's hardly any of them left. 2025, they're going to be 4-cylinder turbos. All the years they made these things to go back to a 4-cylinder, the original ones you could get in a 4-cylinder. And you know what? People said, I loved my 4Runner, but it was a dog. The 4-cylinder engine wasn't enough. They even put V8s in some of these, and they're insane. If you can find one with a V8 and it still runs, buy it, even if you fix it. You can sell it to somebody for a bunch of money because everybody loves the V8s. They're very hard to find. But a Turbo 4, thumbs down on that, but thumbs up on the last of the great 2024 4Runners. The 2012 Lexus RX 350, they sold a lot of these things. Guy bought it for like $12,000 with $120,000. Now it's got 200-something thousand on it. Now, as you can see, it's still in excellent shape. Even though this was made in Canada. This was made in the same factory that made my Matrix, Cambridge, Ontario. Now they only make Lexuses there. You can see the wheels are still in excellent shape. And he pointed out it is an all-wheel drive vehicle. Being all-wheel drive, he's not going to get stuck. It's pretty comparable to a Highlander. You can take them a lot of places. You're not taking it rock crawling. And the main reason it's capable is because what's under the hood. Got a really nice V6 engine. 3.5 liter. They cover it with all that plastic nonsense, of course. But these engines can basically last forever. Which is why I'm mad at Lexus, because they don't make these anymore. They make the RX 350s, but they're all turbo 4s, and they have been for like the last 3-4 years. They put turbo 4s in them all, or you can get a hybrid that has a regular 4-cylinder engine and hybrid, or they have a turbo 4-cylinder engine and hybrid, but they don't offer the V6, and that was the thing that set this apart. They're smooth. They get 23 miles a gallon on the highway. He's still getting it with all the mileage that he has on it. It doesn't burn oil, still shifts good. We're going to go through all the data in a little while to see what shape it's all in, but the way these things sold is because they weren't cheap, but they weren't super expensive either. You know, they cost a little bit more than the Highlanders did, but not all that much more. Somebody wants a Lexus emblem, hey, it's a good car for somebody to buy. If you get a used one, like I say, I would not buy the new one. I would not buy a Turbo 4. I don't like them. Toyota's had problems going from bigger engines to smaller engines. The Tundras went from V8s to Turbo 6s. Now they got to replace 100,000 engines and take the TRD. My son bought that one because it's the last V6. Now they're Turbo 4s, and guess what? They're having problems with their engines and transmissions now, which they never had with the plain V6s. If somebody wants a vehicle, people should have a choice as far as I'm concerned. You want something that's got the torque of this, nice, smooth, not a lumpy 4-cylinder turbo that kicks up and kicks down. They want the power of a V6 and a Tacoma 4-wheel drive like my son's, so they can tow boats, so they can go off-road. They don't want a Turbo 4. And mark my words, it's going to bite them in the rear end, because they're going to lose sales over that. Everybody's trying to push these Turbo 4s, but intelligent people, they do a little research, and they see the engine's not going to last long enough. This thing probably still runs, we'll see when we road test, it probably still runs like it did the day it come off the showroom floor. You will never get that out of a Turbo 4 engine. Hey, they got pretty good ground clearance. It's got a lot more ground clearance than a Matrix has. There's plenty of room. So you can drive it wherever you want to go. You're not going to get stuck. And if you want to tow, you can tow with a V6. Just try towing something with a Turbo 4. They rate them at higher gas mileage, but a normal human steps on the gas when they have a turbo. The turbo kicks in, the engine revs up, they take off, which isn't exactly the thing you want when you're towing something, but then they get horrible gas mileage because ours revving too high. They test them on dynamometers, which they just set them at a certain RPM and leave them. People don't drive on dynamometers. They drive on the regular road. I had one of these Lexuses years ago when I was in Houston, and it was rated at 35 miles a gallon because it was one of those stupid Turbo 4s. I got like 23 miles a gallon driving that thing around. And I was driving the speed limit. I didn't even speed, so that tells you. They should have stuck with these things. If you can find one of these that's still running good, my advice is buy it. Even if you don't really need it, because it's going to last so long. You might say, boy, I didn't need that thing, but hey, I bought it and it's still working 10 years later. Okay, you might think I'm lying, but look, see, he sleeps in it, there's tons of room, and he camps in it, and you got a luxury vehicle that you can camp out with all that space. Check out the leather seats. They knew how to make these leather seats when they built them in Canada. Lexus was ahead of the curve, so it does have a push-button start, which I'm not a fan of, but what can you do? So, there we go. We're going to go through a big scan of this thing. With this new scanner, we're going to give it a ring. Cold outside today, so it might take a little while for this thing to warm up. Well, it's got 96% of its power, so it should work. All right, we will do a scan. We're in Las Vegas. There go the numbers. Let's see if we get a winning one. I think lawyers made this one. They got so many disclaimers. Stick it on. Got a few codes here, not too many yet. All right, minute, 3 seconds. So let's look at some of the codes. The ECM has one. Startability malfunction. Well, all of these with the keyless remotes, at some point in time, maybe it's too cold outside, whatever, the batteries are low, you get startability function. Means absolutely nothing. And there's a code for the cruise control. We'll see what crazy thing that is. Another startability. Well, same code, so we'll ignore that too. Don't bother with the tire pressure monitoring service because he knows one of the sensors in the wheel's bad. Adaptive front lighting system. Oh, that should be a funny one. This, of course, has the fancy headlights that are supposed to follow you as you go in the curves. Headlight swivel motor. Right hand side has a history. Well, we all have histories, don't we? Who cares? Those have electric motors in them. As they age, sometimes they bind and stick. Who cares? It's the navigation system. Well, we'll see what it is, but he doesn't care because he never uses the stupid thing. Everybody's got phones. We use our phones. It's so much better than the crap they put in the factory ones. Then you got to update the software, blah, blah, blah. These things update themselves, and they work a lot better. That fault code just for kicks. See what it says. What is it going to say? Remote control device initializing malfunction history. Start her up. We'll look at some live data, where all the data is, and here we go. Voltage is good, air, fuel, the heater's working on the oxygen sensors. Great thing, it graphs them really quite well too. We don't need a graph now though. The low of the air-fuel ratio is minus 0.781. So at the worst, it's running 78/100% rich, because it's subtracting. With the mileage this thing has on it, that's pretty close to perfect. But I already figured that out because he's getting 23 miles a gallon, and that's what these things get when they're running right on the highway. Ever further on, see if anything looks interesting. Everything is passing the tests. Look at the air-fuel ratio. Okay, one is perfect, so it's 0.999, 0.993. It's only a few, thought it was perfect for a second there. It's only a few thousandths of a percent off, so I gotta say it's doing pretty good. Price, all cylinder misfire 0. Of course, it's not misfiring. And it's showing if there's a misfire, it messes with the cat. Well, they're all off because it's not misfiring. Gives you the catalytic converter temperatures. Notice the front one's hotter than the back one, which is typical. Here we go, all the misfires, they'll all be zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0. All the information on the electronic transmission. We'll see how it shifts, but they normally shift smooth as silk on these things. They're so well made. Things blue, I don't see any bad data anywhere. And as you can see, it might be an old car, 2012. It's 13 years old, but if you want to play with data, it's even giving you the injector volume of the cylinders. As you can see, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Well, we'll bore everybody to death if we show them all. But everything is totally normal. It's blue. This particular one, blue, is good. The original steering wheel, and it's still in phenomenal shape. Plus, it lives in Texas where it's really hot. And the backup camera still works. It's got pretty good wide vision to it. It's not one of those cheap ones that you can't see what's going on. Now, as you can hear or can't hear, the wheel bearings are still in great shape. They're not roaring or anything. And this is really the Lexus where pretty much Lexus caught up with Acura, because in the beginning the Acuras actually were much better driving machines. They were a bit zippier and they were more fun to drive, but this thing, hey, it's just as much fun to drive as the Acuras are. And from my experience, these tend to last a bit longer. Here we go at the back of the road. We'll listen to the shifts. Look at that, we're going up a hill when it's strained, and you can't even feel it shift. These things are so well made. Yeah, they were made in Canada. They weren't made in Japan, but man alive, they knew what they were doing. They were putting these things together. Now we'll look behind us. Nobody's coming, so we won't get rear-ended. And let's see what this thing can do. Whee, good thing it has traction control. You can see it flashing. It would have burned rubber, but hey, plenty of acceleration on these things. Check it out, it's even in eco mode. These things are a lot of fun to drive, and they last a long time. And if you live where there's snow, maybe it rains a lot, you drive hard, the all-wheel drive is going to save you. And I do have to say, I have never seen the all-wheel drive system ever break on one of these. Ever. I've seen a lot of them break on the Acuras. That's one reason I like this better than the Acura. The Acuras always ran good, but they had a lot of problems with their early all-wheel drive systems. And Toyota, they make a better all-wheel drive system really than Honda does. All right, as you can see, hey, this thing just cruises down the line, no problems. I wouldn't think twice about driving this thing to California and back. I mean, look at that steering wheel. It's still in phenomenal shape. And it lives in Texas, where the sun usually beats everything up. And unlike the newer ones, look, the dash isn't all sticky. It's such a shame that they're putting a Turbo 4 in them. So there you have it, a 2012 Lexus RX 350, the perfect family car. But this guy doesn't have a family, he's by himself. He said he doesn't even put the back seats up. He leaves them down, he hauls stuff around, he camps in it if he wants to. Hey, they're great vehicles. A shame that they're not making the 6-cylinder engines anymore. What can you do about that? But if you're looking for something like this, Hey, don't be put off by higher mileage. Don't pay more if it's got 200-something thousand miles on it. But hey, they can go a lot longer than this one's going. There's nothing wrong with this as it stands. But hey, if you're looking for an SUV, don't be put off by Lexus's high prices. Buy a used one like he did. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.